911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hey, everybody.
Hello there.
How are you all?
Y'all.
How are you all?
Oh, Lord. Here comes, oh, Lord. Jinx is in the house.
Jinx is in the house. Nichole is in the house. Frank Meister's in the house.
Hey, y'all.
How are you, sweetheart?
Good. How are y'all?
Good. Doing good.
I'm just chilling.
Miss y'all spicy.
I just had some spicy chicken, yeah.
Hey, Rescue. Hang on a second. If you want to come up, Rescue, I'm going to send you the link.
Oh, you know she's not going to come up. She never does.
I know, but I'm
sometimes she does.
Sometimes she does.
Very
And
seldom.
she might for me.
Peer pressure.
You might be surprised. Hold on a second.
See, she even gave you the laughing emoji.
There she goes. Oh, I sent it to the. Are you kidding? Jinx, I sent it to you again. Sorry.
She said a hard pass.
That's funny. Yeah, I just got it again.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay, she sent it to my phone.
She did mine too, and I forwarded it to my email.
I was like, why did you do that? You always email it to me.
It's probably me because I do the texting. It's easier for me that way. It's my fault.
Yeah, well, so it is for me sometimes because with this stupid Apple computer, it took me a long time because I've always been a Microsoft girl and I grew up on Microsoft. And when it came to computers, I used them for years and years and years since the time they came out. And so then when I went to the Apple, I had to relearn everything. So I keep my my messages are on my computer that are also on my phone. So it's really easy to just pop stuff over there. You know what I mean?
You're insane.
I am insane.
I love you, but you're insane.
I am. I know.
When you get to be our age, Nichole, you'll understand.
I got called old today, so
Oh, I sent it to her. Hang on, I want to send it to one other place, and then we will get going, guys. How's everybody that's in the house? I'm happy to see you all. I know it's been a while. I apologize for that. But yeah, I've been really just not in the mood to go live.
That's me.
It's just been, I had a really long conversation on Thursday with Gonzo about YouTube and about true crime and the true crime genre. And he absolutely agreed with me. He said that's why he stopped posting stuff about true crime on his YouTube channel because the community gets so toxic. And you know, there for a while we were having a lot of toxicity in this Delphi group. I mean, good Lord. And as you well know, Jinx, and Frank Meister for sure, you know, a lot of it was just nefarious people that were just trying to create drama.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, and not for the good of anything, just to
No.
create drama and hurt people. Randy said, remember on September 20th, the walk is at 1 p.m. at Armstrong Park at 9th and Beck Lane in Lafayette. What walk
Armstrong
was
Park
that?
is beautiful.
Which walk is that?
I think it's for that Ann's girl down in Evansville that's been missing for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Andy.
Okay. Jinx, have you heard any more about possibly doing the walk for Flora?
Not yet. I'm gonna get with Kathy and talk to her about that. I know that we had talked about going out there and decorating the groves really soon, so I'll hit her up and get a little bit more of a time down on that.
Yeah,
Sure.
that sounds good. That sounds good.
And to add on,
you are hilarious. She says, I can't stand Jinx. Sorry.
there really hasn't been any cases that have been real intriguing to cover. You know?
There have been for me. There's been a couple that I thought were pretty intriguing, but they were solved really quickly.
That's the problem. They're getting solved so quick.
Yeah,
well, that's not a problem. That's a blessing. But I know what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, no,
right.
It's a good thing. No, it's a good thing. It's an absolute good thing. There are a lot of cold cases out there that could certainly use our attention. And I'm going to start looking for some of those. Like I said before on my channel, I really would like to cover more missing Indigenous women and children because they don't get any coverage at all, and they're constantly going missing. So, but tonight we're going to talk about capturing their killer, the girls on the high bridge. Now, I did a review with Frank Meister on Wednesday night on his channel. And the only real reason that I really wanted to do this again was because I really, really wanted Nichole to weigh in on this because I always love her take on things. And Jinx and I had talked, and she had some really good thoughts as well. And I thought, you know, let's just do it again and go over it again. There is a lot. And after Nichole watched it, because I had forgot to tell her on Wednesday about it, and she's been so busy with the start of school starting back that she's not had a moment to breathe. But I told her, was it last night, honey?
Yeah, I watched it last night.
Yeah, she came home from work and I told her that it had dropped and she immediately watched it. So I was like, yeah. We had a really good talk about it and stuff. And I thought, there's no better way to do this than to have you guys all join me. And I always appreciate Frank Meister's point of view on things, and I really appreciate Jinx as well. She knows so much on the back end of this case, even though a lot of times you don't see or hear her too much, except for her being the super mod that she is for all of us. Let me tell you, she's a super mod. She is always on it.
I always call her the mod boss.
Yeah, she's the mod boss for sure. I don't know what Ruckus calls her, but
Here's Evil CJ Media Investigations. Anybody?
Good evening, everyone. Was scrolling YouTube and saw Jinx 13 on the panel and had to stop in and show some love. Who is that?
I don't know. I can't see the chat.
Oh.
I know. I was like, I see it on the screen, but it's so small and my eyes are. Is that Evil CJ? Oh, I love him. He is the sweetest, y'all. He's come up and done, he's walked the trails with us before. Me and him
cool.
have. And with Randy Gravitt, like he's come up here a couple times. He is just
awesome. Well, welcome then. As long as it's not somebody trolling you, I'm good.
No. CJ and I go way back. He's a doll. He covered Flora. He was one of the first people's panel that I went on to talk about Flora.
Awesome.
He's a doll.
That's awesome.
I know, he's just the best.
So I thought how we would start out is we would kind of, I would like to go through, and so we don't talk over each other. I'm just going to hit everybody and let you all, each one, talk about how you felt at the very beginning of the documentary, like say the first 25 to 30 minutes of it, getting into it. What were your thoughts about it, and how was it making you feel?
Is that the first episode, basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how long they were. I
think they're about 40 minutes.
I don't know.
Yeah, about 40 minutes.
I think there's 3 episodes, and I think they're 40 minutes each. So, yeah. So go ahead, and we'll just go down and around or whatever. So Frank, go first or whatever, and then Jinx, and then Nichole.
I mean, the first episode, it was kind of intriguing because it was all about the family, the girls, but the only really part that I didn't really like is that Jinx had brought this up, and I had to go back and watch it again, is when they asked me directly if I was what do you call it? Obsessed with the case, and I was like, no, and they cut me off right there and didn't let me say anything else. And then it clicked in my brain, like, are they setting me up to be the fall guy, to be one of the loony YouTube creators that's covering this case? Is it what they've done here? But I mean, as far as the first segment of it, that was about the only part that I had a problem with.
How about you, Jinx?
The first episode, it was really nice. It was great to hear from both Carrie and Anna, of course, and Becky and Mike are always just so wonderful. So that was my biggest takeaway. It was really nice to hear from them and hear their thoughts after everything. And I just hope that they're still doing okay at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, exactly. How about you, Nichole?
The first episode, there wasn't really any red flags for me, so to speak. Those all came later.
Yeah, I was very, very intrigued at how it started out when they were definitely talking about the girls, and I was very, very happy to see that they gave a lot of airspace for Carrie. I feel like in a lot of the shows that have been done about Delphi over the years, Carrie's kind of always been left out. So I was very happy to see her be included to the level that she was. And as you said, it's always wonderful to hear from Anna. And I get that Anna doesn't like this. She doesn't like the spotlight. She doesn't like to be at all talked, you know what I mean? And she desperately doesn't like social media. So I get all of that. And I think she did a really good job. I felt like there were a couple of things that bothered me in the first part. I wish they would have gone into more depth about who the girls were, and talked more about them as individuals. I know that they showed, some musically videos that they had done and stuff like that, but I really wish they would have talked about their hopes and their dreams and the things that they were looking forward to, because we know, as people who've covered this case for so long and gotten close to the families, and especially you guys know, that the girls were looking forward to playing softball together. They that very weekend, Abby's grandfather had come down from Michigan and had taken her shopping and got her all of the equipment that she needed to try out for softball. Got her the new glove and a bat and all of that stuff. And they had even gone to the park and played catch and stuff. And those are the kinds of stories that bring them back to not just being victims. Because one of the things that bothers me about true crime, and every time I watch it, it's almost sometimes like I feel like we get numb to it, because we forget that these people were people before they became true crime victims. And that's all they're remembered for, And as a person who's lost a child, I can tell you that one of my fears was that Adam would be forgotten. That was one of my biggest, still is a huge fear of mine, that once I'm gone, who's left to keep him going? Well, his sister for sure. And that, but after her, who else is going to keep talking about him? Do you see what I mean?
Your grandkids. I talk about him. They know who he is.
No, I get it. But that's what and when you listen to Becky talk and I'm on her social media, I'm on Kelsey's social media, you see them post things that makes you remember why they're doing that. And it is to help remind everyone who the girls were and what they're missing out by not having them with them. That's one of the things that I felt as far as the documentary goes. I just wish that they would have showed a little bit more of who they were. The fact that they loved art and they loved doing crafts together. They were just painting Libby's bedroom, and the paint can and everything was still on the floor from them her painting her room. Just stuff like that. Things that teenage girls like to do. It's good to see everybody. Let's real quick before we get in this further, because it's going to start getting dicey, I'm sure. Let's start talking about, let's say hello to some people. Hey, Jill, good to see you. Hi, Mommy Wolverine, Lynn GMB, the Saints in here. We've got Deb. Hi, Deb. How are you, my dear? Good to see you. Lisa. Thank you to all my mods for being here. And I love you all for being here and helping to take care of the chat. Rescue, of course, she is the best. She's saying hi, Nichole.
Oh,
hey, Rescue.
Hey, Randy, you're passing, huh? Let's see. And then we have Josh Schultz. Good to see you. Thank you for coming. Yeah, my heart always breaks the most for Anna too. She just wears her emotions so close to the surface all the time, and you can just hear the heartbreak. I do too, Carrie. I do too, Rescue, about Carrie when she talks about her tattoos, and why she has them. It's pretty cool. Tattoos are cathartic for sure. All right. So moving right along, what were your take on how did you feel about the fact that the documentary didn't have anybody speaking from the prosecution on down to law enforcement?
Well, we all knew what the reason. I mean, we knew that they weren't going to be part of it. We just knew, and especially from my conversations with Holman, and he even explained to me that the ISP's attorneys advised them not to do the documentary after reading the NDAs that they were wanting us to sign. And that was the reason why ISP was not involved. Now, Nick, he's his own person. He doesn't have to answer to anybody. He just says yes or no. Basically, that's just how it works with Nick. And
well, I'm assuming Nick's going to follow whatever law enforcement's doing.
Well, you know that if he would have got in front of a camera, in front of a journalist, you know they were going to blast him with all kinds of questions. And I knew Nick wasn't going to want to be part of that. Same way with Holman. You know, it would have been a drill session on him.
Nick gave the local news station a really good interview already. So there's that.
Right.
Yeah, and it's out there, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For everybody to see. And, you know, one of the things that I thought was interesting was I talked to Nick the day of sentencing.
Yeah.
I asked him questions that I wanted to ask that day. I felt that he was very forthcoming and answered them. But I get it. I get why ISP said no. And because I asked that question of Becky, because she messaged me the morning after I had watched the documentary.
She called me the next morning too.
Yep. And she's like, and she messaged me and asked me some questions. And I asked her that question about why they weren't part of it. And she said, because the new superintendent wouldn't allow it. And I get why. You know, they've got the chance of an appeal being written right now. And so anything they say, you know, could change how that appeal goes in or whatever. So they've got to be very careful. So that I totally get that. But don't you think it would have been better for the documentary if they would have had, since you've got a documentary that's supposed to be trying to stay down the middle.
Yeah.
And I mean, at least in my mind, when I think of a documentary and I sit down to watch one, that's what I'm hoping for, right? I'm hoping for a documentary that's going to show me 50-50 of whatever the topic is that I'm watching.
Yeah.
But I think what I saw and began to see was a lot of confirmation bias.
Yep.
And Derek, thank you so much, Farmer. Thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate it. That's one of the things that I felt right off the get-go was, as you said, Frank Meister, journalists, you know, and ABC News put their names on this documentary, that, you know, you should try and remain neutral and show each side. And I had no problem with them showing the Richard Allen side. I didn't have a problem with them with doing that at all, but I think we kind of went off the rails a bit to the point that it angered me. And I touched on it a little bit on Wednesday night, and I get why Frank Meister didn't want me to go off on his live stream, was because he was involved in the documentary and he was trying to remain respectful, which I'm a respectful person. I'm not going to sit here and completely bash them. But I do feel that there was a lot of problems and a lot of red flags.
Oh, yeah. And see, I even messaged to the producers and I said, look, I give it a 6 or a 7 on the rating scale. But I said there was a few points throughout this whole documentary that I would have tweaked immediately after we got into the fact that they started going into the Richard Allen's history as a teenager and this and that. I'm like, now you guys have overstepped the boundary. You've made it about Richard Allen. And I didn't realize it until I had to go back and watch it again, because like I said, it dropped at midnight and I immediately started watching it and dozing off in bed at the same time. So I talked to Jinx the next morning and she gave me some tips what I needed to look for again. So I went back and I was like, yep, she's right there, and there. And so
go ahead, finish.
Go ahead, Nichole.
I would argue the point on the whole going into the history behind your suspect or your convicted person or whatever, you're setting the scene as to trying to explain why this happened. And so, like, if you look at documentaries on serial killers and whatnot, and you look at their past behaviors and stuff. So I think they were just trying to give you a picture of who Richard Allen was up until this point, as far as those involved in his life knew him to be, which I think is important when you are, I mean, if I came into this with blind eyes to watch this documentary, I'd be like, well, who's Richard Allen? Why did he do this? Like, what made him do this? And we still don't know. But, like, my whole thing was he didn't show any behaviors that would suspect anyone of him doing this.
Do you find it rather curious that only Kathy interviewed for her husband? You know, like there was nobody else, no friends or family.
Well, yes, like so. And that's where things kind of got weird for me.
Yeah.
But again, I'm all for showing, you know, the defense's side and everything. But they didn't question anything about his defense team or Kathy Allen. You know, you're sitting there and you're watching her in this interrogation room, and the police officer's telling her his bullet from his gun was right here. How did it get there? And does she ever ask him, well, explain that? And he's like, well, I can't.
Well, and they don't even bring up the bullet and the keepsake either. Right.
Like, and I'm sitting there, you know, and I can understand being married for somebody for 30 years, but even if my husband, I'd be like, are you kidding me?
Right.
Like, is her delusion just that far gone? And they didn't question her about that. And that bothered me.
There wasn't any questioning, really.
No, I mean, it was just her talking about
it was just
how
like everybody talked and that was it. They just showed people talking. There wasn't like anybody truly interviewing anybody.
No.
Yeah,
and again,
and like you were saying, you know, they all gave these good points on Richard Allen, but we saw videos ourselves that were immediately taken down off Kathy's wall of him out on the back porch with some type of weapon poking at some type of animal on the back porch.
Right.
And that right there should tell you what's going on with this dude in his head.
Right.
We're hearing all the good stuff, but we want to hear about some of the bad stuff too.
Exactly. And they didn't do that. And they didn't question her about anything that she, like, you know, she just kept saying that he didn't do this. He didn't do this. Okay. That's fine that that's your opinion and that you believe that, but where's your evidence?
Where's your logical thinking of why you think that?
Why do you think that? And again, you know, I'm listening to his defense team talk, and they're talking about Ron Logan being a viable alternative suspect.
Right.
And I'm immediately texting Mom, and I go, how tall is Ron Logan? He looks about 6 foot. Bridge guy is not 6 foot.
Well, as soon as he said that,
so
girl, my immediate thought was that, you know, Ron Logan was allowed in, and that was the ruling in the pretrial hearings. Okay, the three-day pretrial hearings, they put in that Ron Logan was allowed to be brought up at trial. So was Keegan Klein, but they didn't bring anything up.
Exactly. Mom and I talked about that too. Exactly. So if you really thought that these were viable,
but you can go on this documentary and be like, oh, he is a viable suspect.
So why didn't you use him at trial then, Rosie?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I wouldn't hire those attorneys if they were the last attorneys on the planet.
And my other biggest problem with that whole thing was when they started talking about their 180-page memo. Is that what, or however
the
long it was?
136 page
yeah.
Frank's motion.
So they talked about how amazing this memo was, but then they didn't show the other side where it read like a kindergartner wrote it. And these are highly educated individuals who should be able to write a document that is readable. For one, I mean, I couldn't read. Mom sent it to me. I'm like, I can't read this.
And
like the grammatical errors and everything drove me nuts.
And the reasoning for that memo was due to the fact of the Odin report.
Right.
The Odin report gets brought up in here, but they didn't give us the conclusion of the Odin report where it said Ferenczi, Murphy, and Click all agreed that they could not put any of the gentlemen that they had named at the scene whatsoever.
They also
convenient. They left things out conveniently.
They did.
They cherry picked information for the documentary, and that is where I had an issue.
Problem. They didn't question those attorneys about them being kicked off the case and brought back on.
No.
Right?
And that should have been in there. That's a huge piece of this case.
Right.
And then you got Rosie at the end, right toward the end of it, agreed that the Odin report is what basically shut the door on their Odin theory. But what was the reason for the Odin report to shut the theory down? We didn't get to hear that, but we knew from behind the scenes because we have read the damn thing so many damn times. We knew the reasoning why they stopped going after the Odin side of it.
So somebody in the chat said, if he isn't guilty, y'all need to be careful. You're not a lawyer. Well, he was found guilty. So in a court of law, he's guilty as of right now, unless it's proven otherwise. And I don't see that happening because the evidence is there.
He is guilty. I don't know who L Dog Vlogs is, but if you follow this case, it was adjudicated. He was found guilty, sentenced to 130 years in prison.
So if you just look at the other people that the defense wanted to put up as possible suspects, none of them could be put in Delphi the day of the murder.
Except for one, Ron Logan, but they done excluded him.
But yes, and then they excluded Ron Logan. And if you go and you look at pictures of Ron Logan and pictures of Bridge Guy, they're not the same.
No.
He admitted 64 times that he did it. And I don't need any more than that.
That's the other thing that we need to talk about, because all they wanted to talk about was that his confessions were false. I would love somebody to come and tell me and show me in a case where there has been a false confession made when you're not under duress to someone other than law enforcement. I know of no cases.
And he wasn't even drugged up.
No, he wasn't drugged up. He was not, he was allowed to still be speaking with his family members. Mm-hmm. On the daily, he had an iPad, he had a TV. He doesn't, false confessions tend to happen, in my experience with all of the things I've researched and watched and read, in an interrogation room that you have been kept in for hours and hours and hours on end, with limited food, limited water, and investigators hounding you. And that's when you give your false confession, and it's usually once.
And you will not find in our judicial system 64 confessions.
No.
None. Trust me, we have researched all this, and we could not find one case where an individual confessed 64
times and it be a false confession.
Yeah, it wasn't. There's nothing false about his confessions. The only thing that I saw that still bothers me is that was one of the things that bothered me about the documentary is they didn't talk about his confessions. They didn't talk about the fact that he confessed. They
did very, very little when he was on the phone with his wife. With his wife.
Yeah.
But beyond that, they didn't mention.
Right. They showed her stopping him from confessing.
Yes.
And it's like they needed to play the phone call where he confesses to his mother, and he says to her, because she does the same thing. she's kind of, just comes back at him. You didn't do this. You didn't. And he's like, why would I tell you I did if I didn't? And to me, that is one of the biggest flags in this case. I said it a long, long time ago when I found out that he had confessed to his mother, is that no man is going to confess a double homicide of 2 children to their mother if they didn't do it. Nobody's going to break their mother's heart like that.
Right.
I'm sorry. They're just not.
And the other problem that I have with the defense is when they start going in and they're talking about the forensics of matching the bullet to his, can I say gun?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To his gun.
No,
and how that's not an exact science when that's not true.
The funny thing you say that is during the trial when they had their witness up there when it came to the bullet expert, he only made his determination by photos.
Right.
He never actually tested the bullet, the gun, nothing.
Yeah.
And you paid this guy what, $25,000, whatever it was, to go up there and say he read it off of a fucking paper.
Right. And that's the thing, is this is an exact science, and guns it's like a fingerprint. Each gun has one, and they're all different. So that was his bullet. So explain to me how it got there if he wasn't there. Because even Kathy Allen said that he never lent his gun out to anybody.
Right.
So that means it was always in
photographs
his possession.
of the bullet. If you look at those with the striations, they line up perfectly. I don't think, even with my eyes, I can see that. You don't need the microscope. I mean, you can see that it's, and they even had, which I thought was a good thing, in the documentary, they had a ballistics expert from LA who said that he looked at it and he felt that it was a match, but he also said that he thought because of this case that second pairs of eyes might have been a good thing.
And that's not a bad thing.
And that's not ever necessarily a bad thing either. But I was really glad to hear that another ballistics expert looked at it and actually came out and said that they agreed with that person's take on the bullet.
Right. Deb says you don't confess with actual facts that are only the murderer would know.
Exactly.
There was things that he knew about that nobody else knew.
Yep. Absolutely.
And he lied to his wife because he said that he wasn't on the bridge.
Well, he lied twice, actually. He lied to her at the beginning.
Yeah.
Before he got arrested, and then he goes into the interrogation room with her in it and then tries to convince her that, yes, I did tell you I was on the bridge.
On the first platform.
Yeah.
And then tries to kind of manipulate her.
He gaslit
you didn't
her.
do anything. It's okay. You didn't do anything wrong.
When he said,
where
he said, I couldn't do this. You know this, right? You know that, right? And I'm like, there, you're basically trying to brainwash her into agreeing with what you're saying.
Well, you can see the manipulation, and I think that he manipulated. I think there was a lot of manipulation in their relationship. And I think you can see that. I've now watched the documentary 3 times. I watched it again. And this time I went through and fast forwarded and looked at things that I wanted to see. And I really watched a lot of what she said. And I don't want to victim bash, because I do believe that Kathy Allen is a victim in all of this. But at the same time, I think that she has seen enough to see the writing on the wall. And I think that she has convinced herself that the only way she can deal with this is to double down on his innocence. I think she needs, to me, in my opinion, she needs some serious counseling. I think this woman is really hurting because I think that she portrays somebody who's not very smart. And I hate to say that, but that's what it seems like to me.
Well,
Because
I've always said that you've been married to your husband for how long? 40-something years, Kristen?
Yeah, 46.
I've talked to enough women who've been married to their spouses at least 20 years or longer, and they've all said the same thing. There is no way in hell that she did not realize that was her husband after all those years.
I think that she, and I totally agree with that. If you guys go back on my channel and watch the live stream where I had,
oh, brain fart.
I know.
Well, I have to say I agree. I think at this point she's seeing the writing on the wall, but it's just.
Who's my crime scene investigator?
Cheryl McCulla.
Cheryl McCulla. Go watch the live stream because Cheryl talks to you guys about there's no way that someone watches that video over and over and over and over and over again and doesn't see their husband, their brother, their uncle. Do you remember when not Ron Logan, but remember when Superintendent Carter told us that, watch their mannerisms, pay attention to their mannerisms, the way they walk. It wasn't so much about what he was wearing anymore. It was about him.
How he carried himself. Because Doug Carter was talking to those people, the wife, the daughter, the son, the uncle, the aunt, the neighbor, the person who works with him, the person who is with him the most, that sees him. Because there is no way that I would not know my husband on a bridge somewhere. I would know that with him. He towers, he's 6'5" for one, and he towers over everybody. And it's like, there's always a mannerism. There's always something about them that you could pick out in a crowd, let alone being the single person walking on a solitary bridge.
When he told her he was out at the trails that day, that should have been a red flag immediately. Should have been a red flag to her immediately.
So, question, guys, how did you feel when Andy Baldwin said that there was no lost tip, that Richard Allen came forward to help the police?
No, I think he was covering. I think he was covering his
own ass.
Because he knew that people had seen him. So if he came, it was better for him to come forward first and say, "Hey, I was out there. If you need to talk to me, whatever," and then just make it look like it was an innocent thing, rather than, because if he truly wanted to help, when nobody kept following up, he would have reached out again, I would think. I don't know.
Well,
maybe that's just me.
That's where I was going to go with this. Go ahead, Frank.
I was just reading a comment for Gibbo to Jinx. Is that Jinx wear a cow bag?
Ha ha ha, Gibbo. I'm going to take over your channel and then we'll see what's up.
You do have access to it, don't you?
So that's one of the things that was a red flag too for me, was just what you guys were talking about. There was a press conference. Okay, Richard Allen goes to Dan Doolin and talks to him and gives him this information. And I agree with Nichole that he did it because he knew when the still photo came out of him on the bridge, somebody's got a picture of me somewhere. Somehow. So I've got to get out in front of this and tell them that I was there. Or he knew that people had seen him because he saw him.
Now I'm understanding a little bit more about the tip, because from my understanding, he filled out the tip sheet himself. Isn't that right? Richard Allen did, and put Richard Allen Whiteman.
Yeah.
Instead of, it was him that did that. It wasn't Doolin.
No. Mm-hmm. And so the other thing, big red flag. 2019, Doug Carter holds a press conference. At that press conference, we find out they're looking for the driver of a vehicle that was parked at the old CPS building from noon to 5. They were looking for the driver. They didn't ask us. Remember, we all couldn't understand why they weren't talking about the make and the model of the car. We couldn't understand what was the deal there because they knew the make and the model of the car. They were trying to find the driver. Why? In that press conference, after that happened, if Richard Allen was so keen on helping police, why didn't he go to them and say, I was the driver. I parked there that day. I told you guys that.
Because he thought he was in the clear.
Exactly. Richard Allen in 2019 thought he got away with it, you guys. Nobody had come to talk to them. Nobody knocked on his door. And he thought, I am free and clear. There was no way in hell he was going to go to police anytime after that.
And reinsert himself.
In the case. He wasn't. Because he
I think that's interesting because when we talked on the phone after I watched it and I was angry with his female defense attorney, Rosie, whatever her name is. I didn't remember.
Oh, no.
Aju.
I didn't care to. Oh, okay.
Aju.
Anyway. Bless you.
And she said that that you couldn't confirm that was Richard Allen's car by that video. And I said, okay, we can give her that. But then at the same time, you can also say you can't confirm that it's not. If you're going to say it one way, then it also has to be true the other way.
Say that again.
So she said that by that, and they only showed the video of the car far away. So it was moving. Yes. Yeah. And so in my brain, it just kind of looked like a black car. And she said, you can't, from that frame, without a shadow of a doubt, say that is Richard Allen's vehicle. And I immediately thought, okay, that's fine for you to say. But then on the flip side, you also have to say you can't prove that it's not.
Right.
And
both
then you
things
also,
are true.
I laugh every time I hear her name, Deb. Every time I hear her name, I think of beef broth.
Now I'm going to remember her name.
Yeah.
But then in the same sense, now I lost the train of thought.
The name of the documentary is the name of this live stream, Capturing Their Killer, The Girls on the High Bridge.
Oh, what I was getting ready to say is the timing of the car going by the Harvester store lines up with the timing that he said he arrived around the trails too.
Right. Yeah. So well, he also in the documentary changed his times because in his original statement that he gave to the park ranger or whoever it was, he said he was there from 1:30 to what, 3:30?
3:30. Mm-hmm.
And then when they brought him in for questioning, he said he was only there from 12
to 1:30.
1:30.
Which was impossible because if he was at his mother's house between 11 and 11:30 and left between that time, it takes at least 40 minutes to get from Peru to Delphi. Plus
stopping actually in Mexico. He wasn't in Peru,
well,
right?
Mexico is not even 10 minutes away from Peru.
But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
He wasn't in Peru. Technically, he was in Mexico, which is
where his mom lives.
And Mexico is Nichole, you know, these little towns that we drive through together. It's one of those.
Well, like I was saying, is that it takes at least 40 minutes to get from point A to point B, stop at a liquor store, get you a 6-pack, go home, throw you down a few of those, change clothes and layer up. And by the time all that time expires, you're almost at 1 o'clock.
Right.
So how can
so if he's innocent, why would you change your time frame?
Right.
Exactly.
And also, why would you change your height on your fishing license a month to 2 months after the murder?
Right. Well, and if you look at pictures of him from the time of the murder then the years following, he changed his looks drastically.
And if you guys remember, what was it that the FBI agent with the dark hair, the black-haired guy, you know who I'm talking about? He's tall, slender.
Yeah.
He told us when they were talking to us in the press conference, he said, be on the lookout for someone who changes their appearance, whether they lose weight, gain weight, change their hairstyle, do whatever, do they take up drinking, didn't drink before, now they drink all the time, do drugs, don't show up to work on time, have trouble sleeping. All of those things are what we were supposed to be looking for in people that we know, and that somebody who either changed their schedule that day or somebody who was supposed to be somewhere and didn't make it, whatever. Those were all things. And, it's never really been talked about enough. If you look at the photographs of Richard Allen from November and December of 2016, 2 months before this crime, he looks 10 years younger than he was.
Yeah. And then all the stress from the years.
And then all the stress that came after he committed this crime, he put on a ton of weight because he was drinking beer like crazy.
Grew his beard out.
He grew his, and facial hair can change the way a man looks. It amazes me. It really does. Like when my husband shaves off his beard, I'm like, who are you? Like, I don't even recognize him. So,
I mean, even when he had the red jumpsuit on and with the slob or food down the front of him, that didn't even look like Richard Allen.
No. Look at the picture of him and Kathy in Tennessee. Look at the pictures of him in Tennessee when they went on vacation.
And she's telling him to shut up and not talk.
Look at those photographs, because he looks, in those photographs, he looks like young bridge guy. See, that's the thing that everybody wasn't catching. If you look at those and try to just...
That's true.
I mean,
I never thought about that when they were when she was showing the pictures of them when they were younger and first married.
And if you look at those photographs of him before he put on all the weight, before he shaved his hair, before he grew the goatee down here to whatever, he didn't look like that. And those are the things that really should have been pointed out. And I think one of the things that really upset me about the documentary was that they didn't go over the evidence against him.
No. All they covered was like with the defense team.
Yeah.
And I found it kind of humorous when they said, well, the judge threw out our memo and then basically just stripped Richard Allen of his ability to defend himself. And I'm like, really? You can't just come in. You cannot just submit a document and say this person, and this person all could have done it.
But
that's
again,
illegal. You have to have evidence to back it up.
Right. Again, but Rozzy also said later on, Ron Logan's a viable suspect. And again,
he's not. Trial. He's not. And I'm sorry, but the Odinism is a red herring.
That's the way I felt about it.
The Odinism, that's, if you go and you read about that religion, they don't do human sacrifices. And never in the history of anything has that ever been a thing.
Even and you can go and,
I mean, he could have just thrown those sticks and they landed like that.
Exactly.
And it's just haphazard that it might look like an Odin ruin.
And then you got Perlmutter they interviewed for this damn thing. Talking about this. I'm like,
I didn't even know her, and I'm like, she's a goon.
Talking about, there's been plenty of show me the proof of these cases where a sacrificial
there's not
done.
Well, remember during the pretrial hearings, Amber Hoder even got up on the stand and said all that business about, the Odin and the god and how he's the protector of women and children, like they would never hurt children.
No.
Right. They would never. And that's the other thing. They were trying to say that white supremacists did this and that this was...
Why?
They kept trying to bring that up. You guys remember, because they were trying to say that Patrick Westfall's group, the Vinlanders, is white supremacists and all of this other stuff.
That's not the demographic that they would have been going out to.
Supremacists aren't going to murder 2 white girls.
No.
Not going to happen.
No.
And Patrick Westfall did a very awesome job in his role in this documentary. He stuck to his guns.
He did.
Through the whole thing.
And I mean, they put him through hell, and I'm glad that he got a voice.
Yeah.
And that he was able to, to talk about that, because again, we've had him on our shows. We know, that he said, I had no part in this, and they brought all this stuff up with no evidence. And it's sad.
And put their names out there like they're writing a book. Put their names out there.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
To me, it's terrible because it hurts their kids. It hurts their family members and everybody. And it's like, there's so many people that have been hurt by this that didn't need to be.
The other thing that really, really bugged me was when Rossi said, when the verdict was in and they were getting ready to go back into the courtroom, and he said, we're going to be respectful, victim's family first, Richard Allen's family second. And I'm like, oh, it's nice of you to think about that now, but where were those thoughts when you released this horrible document about the girls and how they died?
I wonder if he knew,
which you didn't know
when he made that spiel.
You know what I mean?
The fact that they released the crime scene photos and that they're out there forever on the internet.
Forever. Because now you're victimizing those girls again.
Yep.
And where was your compassion for the victim's family back then at that point?
And
but now we're doing a documentary, so now I have to look like I care.
Well, then you notice that they were prepped for this for forever. They were recording their own meetings.
Yeah.
You got Baldwin at home, living in the basement, talking about my wife's probably upset with me now that I haven't been up to bed. Who cares?
You would think if you spent that much time writing a memo, Frank Meister, that it would have been at least legible.
Or a college graduate would have written it.
Right, exactly.
Because it looked like elementary, periods in the wrong place, wrong words being used.
Was like that.
Oh, it was awful.
All their motions were like that. It was.
And so again, I have a very big problem. So in my opinion, when you go into a documentary, either producing it or watching it, it's like Mom said earlier, I want to see both sides. Right. I really do. I really, really do. I want to see what the prosecution did, and I want to see what the defense did, and then I want questions asked. And
they played more sides of the defense than they did anything.
And they didn't call them out on anything. And I was like,
and I understand you're trying to edit in an interview with Nick from a local news station, or you got Holman on another creator's. That's not the same.
It's not.
It is not the same.
It's not.
And so it is hard to do a documentary when you both sides, when you don't have law enforcement or the prosecution involved. But you do have the case of the facts, because it's all done, said and done.
Exactly. So it's all you've got the court transcript. This transcripts are out there.
Talk about it. Right.
Because that's the other thing that bothered me about this, and I talked at length about this with Jinx on the phone, was that, look, the taste at the end of this documentary for anyone coming in new to the Delphi case that's never heard of the Delphi case and is going to watch this, they're left thinking, in my opinion, well, this guy was railroaded.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
What's going on?
Yeah. I know,
that is not true. This case was adjudicated by 12 of his peers from a different county. They didn't even talk about that.
No, they didn't talk about that. And it's like you and I talked on the phone when the guy was talking about the stress that can be put on you if you're in solitary confinement. Well, I don't consider him to be in solitary confinement. He was in protective custody, which are two entirely different things.
Absolutely.
And he had people he could talk to. He was allowed phone calls as often and whenever he wanted. Why
didn't they tell about him breaking the tablet and then replacing it for free?
And then they got him a new one.
I was going to say, he threw the tablet across the room and broke it, and then they got him another one. Guess who had to pay for that?
We did.
They went into depth about mental break, but then they didn't give the other side of it, where it just magically stopped
and started.
And that's
his mental break started when he got his stack of discovery given to him, and he realized what evidence they had against him.
Right. And any good prosecutor is going to have a defendant, no matter what the circumstances. They have to be deemed fit for trial, which he was. So he wasn't crazy or insane.
He was playing that role.
He was, yes.
That was all instruction. That was all instructions by his attorneys.
And they didn't talk about the fact that was all played out in the courtroom for the jury. They got to see all those videos of the things that he was doing when they said he was having his mental episode.
He told them in court, and they saw that too, because it was recorded. Right. He was in his prison cell and he was telling the guards, "I'm not crazy. I'm only acting like it." He told them out of his own mouth. I mean, I don't know how many times Richard Allen has to tell us stuff out of his mouth that we're going to believe him.
You know what I was always taught? You believe what a person shows you the first time.
And for them to try to blame the Odin crap on the guards, that is so far-fetched, because he learned about the Odin crap from his discovery that was handed over to him from his attorneys, and that's where the Odin crap all came in at. As soon as he got
it was Andy Baldwin sitting in his basement. Remember? He came across that paper and he was like, "Oh my God, oh my God."
Right. Yeah, okay.
I had a huge breakthrough at 3 a.m.
And there's the Odin report. Oh, but you didn't tell us the conclusion of the Odin report, did you? What did they say? That those guys were not there.
Farmer, the guards that had the Odin tattoos, if they were making faces at him and they are truly Odin people, he killed 2 girls. So, of course, they're going to have a problem with him. And that's the other reason that he was in protective custody, which they didn't talk about. If they had put Richard Allen in general population, he'd have never made it to trial. He never would have made it to trial. They put him in protective custody to protect him so that he could stand trial.
And people should really check out the statistics for pretrial detainees that are held incarcerated in prison. It's about 25% in all 50 states, by the way. Some are higher. And obviously, a lot of them are high-profile cases.
I thought it was interesting in the documentary, and I can't remember who said it. I think I'm not sure. Was it the warden? But he was saying, they were trying to make a big deal of him being in solitary confinement for 13 months or whatever, and he said there are guys that are in solitary confinement for 30 plus years.
Yep.
So you have to look at, they make this sound like this was just horrible. He was treated so disgustingly and horribly and whatever. And I'm like, definitely, it just upsets me, you guys, because, do I agree with the fact that they sent him to Westfall? I get why they did it. I firmly believe that they did it because they wanted him to survive until time for trial. And had they kept him in Carroll County, more than likely something would have happened to him. Either he would have done it to himself or somebody would have done it to him.
Yeah, we're all reading here, aren't we?
Yeah. Hi, Cecil Hotel. How are you? Good to see you. Farmer says, at first he made those guards seem dangerous, but they didn't do anything to him. I find that ironic. Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, you can say what you want to about Richard Allen, but one of the things that I think about is with him is that he's no dummy. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew who he was playing to, because remember what the guards would say. When his attorneys were around, or his family, he was a different person. He would act out, he would do all the crazy stuff and whatever. And as soon as they would leave or the phone calls would end, all of that stopped.
And that's not how mental illness.
And that is not how mental illness works. And it's definitely not how psychosis works.
No.
Oh, I've been around somebody that went into psychosis, and that is not something you want to be around when that happens. That's some scary stuff right there.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any rational periods. It's not like they come in and out.
No.
They're just completely irrational 100% of the time until they get the medication and whatever treatment. But
I mean, there's just a lot of things that they intentionally did not put in this documentary. You know, I could go over a couple things.
Because
and I also noticed that outside of the documentary, a lot of these creators and these Delulus intentionally look over the evidence against him and try to find other stuff against him, and they couldn't. You know, I was just like, you guys.
It goes back to, you know, I thought it was interesting that they mentioned Ron Logan and they mentioned Kagan Klein, as they should have. Those were big parts of this case. But for the people who believe that Richard Allen is being framed and that he didn't do this crime, Keegan Klein was a perfect person for them to pin this on.
Yeah.
If they were going to do that, right?
Right.
Ron Logan was a perfect person, even more so, because Ron Logan is no longer with us. He died. So,
and it was his land.
And it was his land. How easy would it have been for them to say, okay, we've solved the case. Mm-hmm. It was Ron Logan.
Well, but that's the other thing. So the defense came out when they wanted to put Ron Logan as a possible suspect for this, and they said, well, he has a criminal history. Well, his criminal history was drunk driving, and he was abusive to women. That doesn't make him a murderer. That makes him kind of a bad person, but that doesn't make him a murderer.
And what people seem to can't get through to their heads, and we all know who we're talking about, is that the prosecutor did not have to prove that he was the one who actually physically did this to the girls. All they had to prove is he's the one that took him off the bridge, and that was all they had to prove.
Yes. Yep.
And don't forget Chadwell. He was a good suspect there for a while, too.
Again, they couldn't place him in Delphi.
Nope.
And I mean, if you want to talk about, because there's people out there that were talking about Garrett Kurtz. Yeah. You can't just throw names out. Yeah, these people are bad people. They're murderers. They're horrible people. But just because of that, you can't just say, well, that was them. That was probably them. You have to be able to place them at the scene of the crime.
Yeah. You have to be able to give evidence to support your hypothesis.
Yep. And I was really, really happy that the prosecutors were on the documentary. For those of you that have never watched their podcast, really you should. They're really good. Mm-hmm. I love how they break cases down. And I mean, it's really awesome. And you know, Brett and Alice have said for a long time that he was guilty. They didn't think, you know, they think they got the right guy. And like I said, no matter how many people say that, there are so many out there that refuse to see the writing on the wall. And I don't believe that we will ever change those people's minds.
So, but this is my thing, is I want to know why those people feel that way. Like, I would really love to hear their argument as to why you think he's not guilty.
No, absolutely. Like
because
I said,
I don't see any evidence.
Tom Webster talks about
it.
Tom Webster talks about it in the documentary. And he's like, you know, when he started his YouTube channel, Tom wanted both sides. He wanted to hear the people that didn't believe that Richard Allen was innocent or guilty, and he wanted to hear from the others. But when he started realizing that Richard Allen was not innocent and was guilty, he wanted the people that still believe that way to bring in the reason, bring in the factual evidence that shows this.
And not the hearsay or the conjecture.
Exactly.
Or, you know,
and they would never do it because there wasn't anything.
There's not.
And in our justice system, it's the evidence that speaks, not what we think or how we feel. No. Now, with that being said, did you guys hear the take of Kathy Allen when she said, you shouldn't be able to charge someone on how you feel or what you think? Do you honestly believe that that's what they did?
No. Because if that's what they were going to do, it's like you just said a little bit ago, they'd have done it with Ron Logan or Keegan Kline.
I'm sorry, honey, say that again.
If they were going to pin it on somebody because of the way they feel, they'd have pinned it on Ron Logan or Keegan Kline and not wait, you know.
Well, you know, I look at Nichole Robinson of the FBI. I think she was trying her damnedest to make sure it was Ron Logan, just from her PCA on Ron Logan. I mean, she had the wrong time on there that the girls arrived at the trail. She had the wrong coordinates on there for where the girls' bodies were located. To me, it was almost like a rush to judgment on FBI's part, what they were trying to do.
Well, see, that was the other thing, though, too, Frank, that if you noticed in the documentary, they made such a big deal, the fact that Ron Logan's phone pinged that night after the girls were murdered that night, the night of the 13th, that his his phone pinged where the girls were found. Well, that's not true. And we know that to not be true because there were only 2 cell towers in Delphi in 2017. And back then, when you did pings, you could be 10 miles off.
Right.
On a ping. So just because he pinged didn't mean that he was down there by where the girls were.
Just means he was in Delphi.
And that alone, and you guys sat in court, Jinx, Frank, and listened to the experts explain this. Do you see what I mean?
It was bouncing all over town, and so you couldn't get an approximate location because you can get with a ping within like 10 feet. If you have 3 towers, now if you got 3 towers, but if you got 2 towers, it's just pinging back and forth through the town. It's not connecting anywhere.
Yeah, and Farmer said when Mr. Steve went out and did, when Steve True Crime Webb went out and did all of his ping tests in Delphi, he was actually pinging 5 miles away that night. It was showing him 5 miles away from where he was. So they're not.
Oh yeah, Gibbo. We manipulated the jury.
He what?
Gibbo's making fun and saying that we got to the jury.
Oh yeah, we sure did.
Oh yeah, like Rick Snay would say, "You guys got to the jury, didn't you?" Right outside the courtroom when the guilty verdict came out, y'all got to the jury, didn't you? How in the hell are we supposed to get to the jury?
Yeah, exactly.
We're not going to go there.
No, I did see in chat there was a. I don't know the validity of it. I just know that there was a person whose account I saw in a chat one time who was taking claims for stalking the jury and getting pictures of them outside on the patio with the guards and stuff. And I'm just like, that's really creepy if you really did that. Like, why would you do that?
That's also illegal.
It's illegal. And if you get found out, you can be accused of jury tampering. So.
Oh, they were trying to hem this person up. I already know about that. They were trying to get them busted on their probation. Jinx knows who I'm talking about.
Oh, no, I'm talking about a separate person, but I know what you're talking about too. Yeah, that was that business in Fort Wayne.
Crazy ass girl, man. Jeez.
Yeah, that was some shady stuff right
Why
there.
do I hear crickets?
Mom's got crickets in her room.
Oh my.
Gotta feed them little critters.
I gotta feed my animals, you guys.
Oh, gross.
Oh, my mantis is hungry.
Kristen, you'd be so
Magenta.
proud of me. I saved a jumping spider in my house the other day, and I put it outside.
I'm so proud of you.
I know.
You want to read what Gibbo says here, right toward the end? Put it up on the screen.
The pings?
Yeah.
The pings on Libby's phone were historic pings used to try to locate her through her older pings. That's why they were all over town. And I like what he says, because Farmer's like, and maybe the towers are better now, you think? They're much better now than they were in 2016, almost 10 years ago.
Farmer's a smart cookie.
So. Oh, yeah. And Nichole, Farmer said to tell Nichole, Kristen's daughter, I love the live you guys did on John Bonet.
Glad somebody did.
Yeah.
So didn't John Bonet get approved for some new DNA testing?
They did. Yeah.
Yep.
That should be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting.
I can see she's been to Starbucks.
My husband, this isn't from Starbucks. My husband went and got me a Slurpee from Hy-Vee. But it's good.
Well, she's getting a double dose of caffeine over there.
Yeah, she's got coffee and Mountain Dew.
Lord.
So I finished my coffee. I told you guys, I'm in bed every night at 8.
I'm waiting for it to start to get the jitters here in a minute.
I won't. I can drink coffee and go straight to bed. It doesn't bother me.
Oh.
I'm a weirdo.
Kathy Allen's going to be
insane.
very disappointed woman because, she made the comment that she's got everything waiting for him to come home.
Yeah, I know.
And he's not coming home.
I don't think that people, and they didn't go into that, and they should have explained it, how appeals work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because Ron Allen, in order to have an appeal, he would have to show
Richard
Allen, I keep doing that, would have to show that his defense was lacking or whatever, but he signed incompetent, but he signed that appeal away when he requested them to put them back on the case. So he can't appeal under that.
Only thing they can appeal is technicalities throughout the trial.
Right. And I think the prosecution, I don't see any errors that would,
the only one that's ever been brought up is the one where Nick didn't correct error during Brad Weber's testimony, which I understand why he didn't correct error, because it doesn't make a difference if Brad Weber got home at 2:30, 3 o'clock, 3:15. The first coroner on the scene to examine the girls made it very clear that they died between 2:30 and 3:30. So if you want to get technical, Brad Weber fell in that time frame.
Exactly. And that's the other thing too. We were told early on, if you remember, law enforcement told us everything was over by 3:30.
Mm-hmm.
And they were adamant about that. And that's because that is what the autopsy told them. And for all the people that were out there saying that, the girls took longer than that, and the girls were awake, and the girls were this, and all those awful
somebody
things.
Plugged in a ear jack into her phone at 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And I think that is for me personally, when I'm looking at these cases, the timeline is one of the most important pieces of evidence.
It is.
Because you can't argue that.
No.
And he put himself there at that exact time.
He did, wearing the same clothes.
And he didn't interview none of the girls that saw him. That's another thing in the documentary.
That bothered me, because they interview 3 girls and they don't tell you who they are. Yeah. They don't let you know that those aren't the 3 girls that saw him on the bridge that day. These are the 3 girls that were close friends, but that were at the sleepover where they were talking to Anthony Schatz.
That's how they Libby got introduced, was by them 3 girls.
Yeah.
The Anthony Schatz account.
Yeah, those weren't the girls on the bridge. Definitely not.
What are you saying, Jinx?
I said those were not the girls on the bridge.
No,
not the ones that were in the Hulu documentary.
When I saw that name, Allison Penn, I said, "Ah, my God, they've got her on here, and no one's talked to her this whole time."
Yep. And I just, I agree with Nichole. I wish they would have gone in a little bit farther and talked about the fact that this man is putting up an appeal, and this is how appeals work. And in this country, it is very, very rare for these types of cases to be overturned on appeal.
Yep.
Very, very,
there
very,
would have to be,
rare.
In order for him to get an appeal, in my opinion, there would have to be new evidence. And I don't see that happening.
I think the statistic when I looked it up was like 15%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's low.
And, it's the sad thing about the appeals process is that it can drag on for years.
Mm-hmm.
And that because of that, then the families are drugged back, are drugged back into it every time there is, they're waiting for that other shoe to drop.
I did some statistic research on people that are charged with crimes like this, and what's the percentage of them that tell their defense team that they're the ones who did it. 15% of people that are charged with crimes like this tell their attorneys that they did it, but out of 90% out of that 15% end up pleading guilty and taking a plea bargain.
Right. Well, and Mom and I talked about this when we were talking about the case because, and this is my opinion, and I'm not an attorney, don't have a law degree, but I feel that the defense team did do a disservice in the approach that they took to his defense because they wanted to prove that he was innocent. And I think that had they taken the other route, where he is guilty, that he could have gotten lesser time or, pleaded down or whatever if he'd have just copped to it. And when the attorneys know that you did it, that has to be their path because they can't put a case together and put people on the stand to lie.
Yeah, but the thing about these guys, we knew it was a money grab for them.
Right.
It was a money grab from day one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They preyed on them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they're still manipulating Kathy into thinking that he's got a chance. And you know what makes me upset? Yeah. GP, Kathy answered that question. She does not believe that her husband did this.
No,
period.
She does not.
She does not believe that.
And that's what's crazy to me because she starts out when she's at the very beginning of the documentary, when she's first on, she talks about what a loving husband and a loving and caring father he was, which all could be very true things. But there's another side to Richard Allen that he doesn't let people see.
Including her.
Including her. And she wants to sit there and talk about what an amazing man he was. Why'd he leave Walmart?
Right.
I mean, that's a good point you just brought up right there, because how many ex-employees of his or co-workers that he had said he was strange and did some weird shit, but they didn't interview none of these people.
No, and she doesn't talk about that, and she knows. So
yeah.
You're trying to paint a picture of your husband that's not an accurate picture.
Jinx and Frank Meister, you guys were in court as well. I was in there for a couple of days. You guys know that there was not anybody sitting in that courtroom on Richard Allen's side except for his mother and his wife. Who else came to court in to support him?
Nobody until the very end.
Any friends or family or or
I mean,
coworkers?
the hearings and stuff. Yeah, it was just his mom and Janice, or his wife and Janice. And then at the trial, Janice
Do you
had
not find that weird?
that one girl attached to her hip or whatever with purple hair. Yeah, I do. Yeah, there was really
Rainbow Bright.
Yeah, and then I think
His sister was there.
yeah, his sister was there.
His daughter.
One day. And
His
her
daughter
yeah,
was
that
there
was
one
one day, but that was the day they testified.
And it just still strikes me kind of odd the way that she was looking at him while they were doing a sidebar. She would look over at Richard, and then as soon as he got a glimpse of her looking, she would turn her head away, like she couldn't face it.
For her.
It just makes me wonder: is there more to what was being said? What allegedly was said that Richard did to his daughter and to his sister? It just makes you wonder.
Where they both said
well,
no,
and
so.
that's where I question, because in my opinion, the way that if this was his first time doing this, 2 victims at one time is a huge first time.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that is like.
And then you got people saying, how can he control 2 teenage girls? And I said, if you got a gun pointed at you, you're gonna comply.
He used their love for each other.
And then you got a prime example. Even though the Brian Koberger case, he killed 4 people by himself.
Right.
In less than
with
15
a knife.
minutes.
Yeah.
Within what, 10 to 15 minutes?
Yep.
Come on now. It is very possible that somebody
and he had
can
to sit down. He sat down on Xana's bed after he finished in that room. He sat down for a few seconds or minutes or whatever on that bed because they had that
knife sheath.
Yeah. No, that was upstairs. No, after he was done with the 4th victim, he sat down on the bed in that room just to grab his senses or get his whatever.
Yeah.
To get his mojo to get the hell out of there.
To get out of there, yeah. Because they said that the adrenaline that it takes to do that kind of a crime, and we have to look at that with Richard Allen because it's the same thing. He used a knife.
It's very personal. That's a very up
very
close
personal.
killing.
And it takes a lot to do that, and it takes a lot out of you. And I think it says a lot that these people can go and commit a crime like that and go right back to their life as if nothing else happened. He was just laying on the couch when Kathy came home like it was just another day in Delphi.
Yep.
What do you mean there's girls missing? What? Huh? What?
Wait, but why did she say there's girls missing in Delphi? Like she didn't live there.
Yeah, exactly. It made it sound like Delphi was miles away when it was less than a mile from their home.
Right around the corner.
Right around the corner. So again, anybody brand new to Delphi and the case wouldn't know that.
Honestly, I didn't even know how close they lived until me and Rescue were in Delphi one day, and she said, "You want to go by Richard's house?" And I was like, "It's that close?" And I was like, "God, you can walk to the trails,
almost
to the Freedom Bridge, about less than a half hour walk there." Yeah.
And that's, to me, that is, that's a huge thing. It's like Kathy said, they used to go out to the trails and walk on the trails, and they used to go out there a lot. And after the murders, he wouldn't let her go. He didn't want her out there. So he's playing into, it's not safe and, blah, 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 blah.
And didn't want to go help look or anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wouldn't let her go look for the girls that night. All of that.
He knew.
He knew.
Yeah, absolutely he knew. And sociopath, psychopath, whatever he may be. I'm not a psychiatrist. I can't diagnose him, but I just know that they're very good. These types of individuals are very good at compartmentalizing their lives. And when you look at BTK, you look at Gary Ridgway, You look at the guy in California,
You're talking about Richard Ramirez.
The East Area rapist.
The old man.
The old man.
The cop.
The cop, right.
Yeah.
You look at these guys and even look at the Long Island, the serial killer up there that they haven't taken to trial yet. But you look at these men and they are so good at, because they all had professional jobs where these weren't bums that were just living out doing nothing and, were trying to hold down a job and not doing it very well. They all had good jobs. BTK, Kathy made a big deal of, how can you charge somebody who works in customer service and just wants to help people?
Well,
Are you
if
freaking
he wants
kidding
to
me?
just help, then why would he stop her and stop him and not go out and search that night?
Right.
Exactly.
And I'm like, help people.
If you want to help people,
was the president of his church. Ladies and gentlemen, he was the president of his church. And he was a serial killer killing people. That has nothing to do with anything. The fact that he worked in customer service, nothing.
It just polishes up his interactions with people. That's all customer service does.
I mean, it's just, he hid in plain sight.
Well,
he hid in plain sight.
So I wonder if this, my AirPods just died.
Guess it's time for us to go.
Right. So the pictures that Kathy Allen was showing and stuff, he wasn't smiling in the majority of them.
You guys, look who's here.
Anybody else?
Oh, Gonzo.
Hey, Gonzo.
Notice that when they were watching it?
Sorry.
Very sophisticated psychopaths.
What was you saying, Nichole?
The pictures that Kathy Allen was going through and showing of him and them and everything, he wasn't smiling very often in any of them.
Mm-mm. And neither was Kathy.
Right. It just, I don't know. And I don't know.
I think that he was
creepy pictures.
He's a very creepy guy. And I mean,
that's my point.
I think if you, especially now that we know about him. I mean, we all talk about the picture that she took of him when she walked up to the car when they were shopping at Christmas. Remember, you guys?
That came out of his skin.
And he turns and looks at her. I mean, if looks could kill.
Yeah.
And, so what do you mean sneaking up on me,
Oh, yeah, that was a spooky one, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very. And they're really good at hiding who they are when they're in that mindset. And do we know what Richard Allen's motive is? I'm only going by what he told Dr. Walla, and he told her that he was a sex addict who had.
What is that?
I don't know. What is that? That was weird.
Yeah, that was weird.
Hey, Gonzo, how are you, my dear? So good to see you. So glad that you got to jump in and say hi to all of us.
But I will say this, that after speaking to Becky and the family after the documentary, Becky was pretty satisfied with it.
Yes.
It's the only thing I can say because I can't speak on their behalf. I can just tell you what me and her talked about, and she was just satisfied with it.
And that's fine. And I'm glad that she didn't feel any other way, actually.
But they did make sure that she got the last comment in the very end, talking about he's the guy, It's
Right.
over with.
That was the other thing I felt a little disjointed over, the fact that they didn't bring up the ball field.
Oh,
they
yeah.
didn't
They just showed
talk about the memorial to the girls at all.
No. It was more or less to show where their shrine was out at the ball field, way back there in the back toward where the stage was.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, they had Anna out there, but it wasn't like they said, look what the community put together and was able to, do to have a legacy for the girls.
Right.
Again, I just wish they would have done a little bit better at showing the girls and who they were, and talking about their legacy and talking about what was lost, rather than focusing on trying to show that this guy was innocent, because that's just crazy in my opinion.
And I would have liked to have seen at least 2 or 3 residents of Delphi being interviewed to give their perspective.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too, because they didn't really have anybody.
No.
And I didn't like the fact that Andy Baldwin was allowed to tamp down what Kathy Shank did, because that woman gave up she gave up a lot of years of her life for nothing. She didn't ask to be paid or anything, to go in every day and work those tips and organize them and put them in some semblance of order. And, I know from talking with her at sentencing, she said that she watched Frank Meister and I, and that we were 2 of the good ones that were covering the case, and that she enjoyed our show. But I think that woman I thought she deserved to actually get the reward. And I know she doesn't want to take it, but
right.
she could certainly take it and donate it to the Abby and Libby Memorial Fund.
I actually met Kathy Shank just by random coincidence at the grocery store. And I went up to her and I just told her, I said, I just think you're wonderful for what you did for Delphi. I just wanted to say thank you, and you're appreciated. And then I just walked away. You know me, I'm like, I just say what I need to say and get out of there.
And just to let everybody know, anybody that had interaction with the families, the prosecutor, law enforcement, or anything, trust us when we tell you this. Nick flat out told me and Kristen after the sentencing, you're damn right, I ran background checks on you guys.
He knew all of us. He knew who we all were, because it was so cute. Because when I walked up to him, I looked at him, I said, "Hi, Nick. I'm Kristen." He goes, "I know who you are." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay."
He made it very clear that they ran background checks on us. So
and that is, I wouldn't expect a good police investigative team not to pay attention to who's covering this stuff.
Right.
Because, we've talked before that, and I still believe it, you guys, that Richard Allen was watching. I believe that he was watching us. I believe that maybe not me specifically, although I told Deb and I told a couple of other people, the way he looked right through me when he looked at me in court, I was like, oh my God, it's like he knows who I am. And maybe he did. So I don't know, but they watch. They
proved that Richard was watching because of his Google searches. They showed that he was Googling about the Delphi case, the whole works, months prior to him being arrested. So he was following at one point in time because he knew that his goose was cooked. It was coming, and he was wanting to know where they were at.
Yeah.
And I believe it has something to do with when he made that comment to Holman in the driveway, it doesn't matter. It's over.
Right.
He knew why they were there.
No, absolutely. And that was the thing, when Holman, because I asked him, I said, was there anything when was it that you knew you had him, or this was the guy, And he was like, there was a couple of them. He said, but that's what he brought up. He said, it really bothered me when he said that.
Yeah, he said
because innocent people don't say things like that. Innocent people don't say, well, it doesn't matter anyway, it's all over. That's not what an innocent person's going to say, you guys. And he knew he was caught after he said that. And that's why you see him in the interrogation where they talk about it. And he's like, well, I was referring to my neighbors, and you talked to everybody I worked with and everything else, and you ruined my life. And, I just, like I said, I just think that he'll continue to watch. He's going to have the availability to continue to watch the coverage of this case. And that in itself irks me, because he's going to get to see all the delulus.
He gets to relive it.
Yeah. Every day.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we've been on here for an hour and 40 minutes, and I think we've had a really good discussion. I think we brought up some really good points. I don't think we were disrespectful to the producers of the documentary at all. I think we gave them a really good critique that they can look at if they want to about how we felt. And, I feel that our opinions do matter, because I covered this case since day one. You guys have been on this case for years, and people who care and really wanted an outcome of justice in this case will and do care about how it's told and how we tell their stories.
And I will say this real quick. I got a message from one of the producers telling me that they got a number 3 rating on the documentary for Hulu. It was ranked number 3.
Oh, I'm sure it's going to get watched. I mean, people who are true crime enthusiasts are going to watch it. And what they need to know is that it's not the people that are, like I said, that are brand new to Delphi aren't going to know. I hope they're able to figure it out. Where's the evidence? They didn't talk about the evidence they had against this guy. You know what I mean?
And another thing I want to bring up, I had one of the producers get a hold of me and ask me who individuals were. I do not give that information about who the real names are or anything. One of them's in the chat right now, and was asking. Wait a
minute, they're asking for your subscribers' names that are sitting here in the chat commenting.
Yeah, well, yeah. Remember I told you about that the other day? When
I guess I glazed over that part. OMG.
Yeah, one of them's in the chat right now asking I'll just go ahead and say it, want to know who CJK is. I'm like, honestly, that's none of your business.
That's nobody's business.
She's
just a regular person like me. That's invasive.
You don't ask somebody that you had in a documentary who these people are.
Why? Because they might have said something that person didn't like. Wow, get over yourself.
They can get mad at me all they want, and I told them straight up, I would have critiqued this.
That's gross behavior.
Because what I saw toward the end was all leaning toward the Richard Allen fans, and I was just like, oh no.
Yeah, and that was it. I think that was the bad taste, and the takeaway that I took was that I felt like it was really one-sided for Richard Allen. And that is sad. One of the things that you hear over and over again in true crime from the victims' families is that we always remember the perpetrator's name, but we never remember the victims' names. Mm-hmm. I don't think that we will ever forget Abby and Libby. I know I won't. I don't think that anybody that gets involved in this case will ever forget their names or their faces. I feel the same way about the Idaho when you think about what Kaylee and Maddie and Xana and Ethan went through that night, you're never going to forget them. And I think that we as creators need to make sure that when we are talking about all these different cases, that we really hit home on remembering the victim more than we remember the perpetrators. Because these guys, that's what they want, their 15 minutes of fame. They want us talking about them every day.
That's why you don't see me doing lives about it anymore.
I know. I mean, Frank and I talked about it a lot. Right after sentencing, and we were like,
we're
done. Do you want to go live? No. Do you want to go live? No. I mean, it's like Delphi's been adjudicated. I would not have done this live had it not been because this documentary came out and made me mad. But I think that we need to keep talking about Flora, because they need their day in the court system with justice. Galen needs justice.
Evansdale also.
And for Evansdale as well. These crimes are still hanging out there, and that's what we need to be focusing on, not doing daily Delphi videos anymore. But that's just me. So I appreciate you guys being on. I haven't had a four-panel discussion in a long time.
And hopefully the next time a Delphi show comes up, it'll be over the appeal, and that is it. I'm completely done with this case. Like you said, it's been adjudicated. There's nothing to talk about.
Nope.
If you want to look at things and turn a blind eye to what's the actual evidence, that's all on you guys. You guys are missing out. You're not teaching yourself anything about how the judicial system works.
And if you guys know, or for those of you that may not have heard or know, Richard Allen was moved out of Indiana and is currently being held in Oklahoma. He is in a holding.
He's in RDC.
Yeah, where they actually hold them for 30 days and they evaluate them to decide where they're going to end up. So he's still not in the prison that he'll probably end up in Oklahoma. But they did move him out of Indiana, and I believe they did that for safekeeping, to try and keep him safe.
It basically was. And a lot of people didn't understand how that happened. Well, Indiana has got an agreement with several different states.
Yep.
They could transfer their prisoners from state to state in those certain states.
And that's how Colorado is as well. Mm-hmm. And Colorado did the exact same thing with Watts. So they moved him to Wisconsin. So Chris Watts, they knew that he was not going to be safe in Colorado.
Well, you kill kids.
Yep.
Have mercy on your soul when you get to the big house. That's the only thing I could say.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you again. It's time to say goodnight. Nichole, don't fall asleep. I can tell you're tired. Jinx, I'm so glad you were here, honey. I love having you on anytime.
Thank you. Love you, bunchies.
And Frank, thank you so much.
I love all you guys, especially everybody in the chat.
Yeah, and thank you to everybody that came in tonight, and for anybody that watches on replay, thank you again. I appreciate each and every one of you. And Derek, thank you so much for your $3 super sticker. I appreciate it. You guys have a good evening, and I will see you soon.
Good night, guys.
Good night,
everybody.